Hello my friends, it's the Game Boy Geek here. Today we're all ninjas, trying to be the last one standing by knocking out all of our opponents. We're going to be fighting and playing cards, but the trick is you can see all the other opponents' cards, but you can't see yours until maybe it's too late. There's also some item cards you can use to help you in battle. Today we're taking a look at Shadow Strike Melee. This is from Pure Fun Games and it's on Kickstarter right now. It plays 3 to 9 players in an individual mode, or you can play it in a team versus team mode, ages 10 and up. So I'm going to show you all about the game and then I'll see you on the other side. At the beginning of the game, each player will start off with 3 fight cards, and it's really important that these cards do not face you. These are the back of the cards. There's a draw pile in the middle of the table. You don't get to see your own cards, and throughout the whole game, these fight cards, you have to make sure you don't look at your own, but you'll be able to see your opponent's cards. So for example, when I look at the corner of the table on the other side, we have 2 different opponents. One on the right with 3 cards that say 9, 8, and 5, and the opponent on the left that says 1, 4, and 0. They cannot see their own cards, but again, you can see all the opponent's cards. Each player will also get 3 item cards, and they will be able to see those, but they'll keep them secret from their opponents. There'll also be a draw pile of these cards in the middle of the table. And so when looking at your opponent's hands, again, you'll be able to see their fight cards, but you won't be able to see their item cards. Now the last player to win any game will go first. Let's assume it's us, and these are our 3 fight cards, which again, we cannot see. We will choose an opponent to fight, and by looking at these cards, the higher numbers are better, so we probably want to fight this opponent over here, who has a lot of lower cards. Now since you can see other players' fight cards, you can never give them any hints, even any facial expressions, especially when they're trying to pull some of their cards to play. And so without looking at our own cards, we'll select one and put it face up on the table. So we randomly select one, we put it face up on the table. The opponent does the same thing, randomly selects one without looking at it, and they put it on the table. Whoever has the lower number will have to turn one of their fight cards the other way. So let's say this losing player decides to turn this one around, showing that they've been hit once. Now all the cards that were played in that fight go into a discard pile face up next to the draw pile. All contestants will then draw one of these cards, again making sure that they don't look at it. So if we're sitting right behind the view of this camera, we would pick it up and not look at it and put it up on our board like this. So since we won the fight, we would place it like this without looking at it. Now normally the rules say you're going to hold these cards up near your eyes, almost like looking through a ninja mask. And that other player will do the same thing without looking at it, but we can see it. Now the most important part of this is they can now see one of their fight cards because it's been turned around showing a hit to other players, but they get to see it. So now when they get into another battle and it's time to take their fight card, they can press their luck and take one of the ones they can't see, or they can take the one they can see if it will help them out. So as the game goes on, as you take more damage, you get more and more information, but will it be too late until you have the most information? Well, we'll have to find out. And the next player clockwise would take their turn. Now, if all the players in the fight tied, then no one has to turn their card the fight side out, just as we just showed when you take damage. Both of these would just get discarded, and they would both replace these cards without looking at them, like shown previously. Now, there's different item cards you can use as well. For this one, at the start of your turn, you get to pick an opponent's fight card. So for example, if it was my turn and I wanted to fight this player over there, I could pick the one in the 0 that they must play. And so even though when I selected my fight card, it was a low number 4, their 0 comes into play, and I would have beaten them in this fight. All played item cards go into a discard pile next to the draw pile of the item stack, and if at the end of your turn you don't have any item cards, you draw 3, and when you draw these cards again, you always put them facing you so that you can see them, and it's the opposite of those other fight cards. Now let's say it was my turn again, and my fight card was 0, the opponent's was a 5, I could play the energy bar as a reaction, and then I can replace my played fight card with one from the draw pile. So from the draw pile, I would just take a card randomly, and hey, look at that, I beat them 9 to 5. So this would go into the discard pile for the items, these would go in the discard pile for the fights, and this player would take a damage as shown before. Now let's say there were 2 other players fighting each other and this player was about to win. You could play this bomb reaction card and you could join someone else's fight, and you would randomly pull one of your fight cards and you could win the fight even though you weren't in it, and both or all the other players that you beat have to then take damage. Instead of using this as a reaction card, you can use it at the start of your turn to refresh any number of your fight cards. So you could essentially discard this one to get a new one. You always need to keep them facing the same way, and maybe you refresh this one and just pick up another one, making sure again it's going the same way. Now let's say we're fighting this player again. They have 2 hits already, and let's say we fight against them and we beat their 1. Essentially they take their 3rd hit and they are completely out of the game and KO'd. Now if we're looking at my own cards, these are flipped this way, meaning I've been hit twice. This is my fight card that I can't see, so I have 1 damage left. If this was the last player standing, then that player would win. Essentially you want to knock out everybody else and be the last one standing. You can also play a team game. Here's 4 different players on 2 different teams. They get to pick the colors, and you want to make sure that it alternates between the 2 different teams. Now, if you're playing with 8 or more players, it's strongly recommended you play with teams, and in this case, you'd have 4 different teams, 2 players on each team. You can even play up to 9 players as 3 teams of 3 players. Now let's say the green player threw a 1, the red player was about to win. You can discuss item cards with your teammates, so this player then will play this reaction card and play this, which again wins the fight, but you never give damage to your own teammate. And like normal, you can never discuss or give any hints about the fight cards you can see in any player's hands. Now in team play, as players are getting eliminated, they are out of the game, and the last team to have at least 1 player left wins the game. Well, there you have Shadow Strike Melee. As you can see, very light and fun family game. Takes only about 10 minutes to play, ages 10 and up. And it has that interesting thing of where you can't see your own cards, but you can see everyone else's. But as the game goes on and you start getting more damage, you get to see a little bit more of what you have, but it might be too late. And then you have those different item cards that you're able to use to manipulate things. Take it one step further with team versus team, and you have a lot of fun here. Now this game's on Kickstarter right now. There's a link just below me in the description of this video. You can click on that link and be brought right to the Kickstarter page to see all the final artwork, all the final components, and I'm sure the people at Pure Fun Games would love your support.